Welcome to the DIY Writer Show with the mild-mannered, slightly heroic host, Jeff Bacon.
This is Jeff Bacon with the DIY Writer Podcast, and today I've broken some of my rules. I've got Nattolie Chilton here, and she has a website called I Am Truth Vigilante. And when I say I broke some of my rules, she is in the process of creating a book. She's actually going to be jumping into the editing process pretty quick. So she actually doesn't have a book out there right now, but it will be coming out in 2021. Now, there's a lot of things that she has gone through, and there's a lot of things that she approaches on her website, iamtruthvigilante.com, that I think are very interesting and worth in a very worthy talk, I guess, conversation. And so in preface to her book, we're going to have a conversation with Nattolie. Nattolie, how are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. I'm so excited.
So am I. I'm interested to see where this thing goes. So let's talk a little bit about your book and the process of actually, writing a book. You said that this book has taken you 6 years to get to this point. So let's talk about that.
Oh my goodness. Well, I actually felt the call like in 2007.
Okay.
And then it wasn't until 2014 that I actually started, like I've been writing since I was 20, but that I actually started to try to write my memoir. And I'm 50 and it's a long life, right? And there's well, for me it is, there's like mountains of experiences. And I felt like God wanted me to tell my story because of the transformation in the journey.
Okay.
And and so I started writing, and it's like every time it's been so challenging because of so much trauma and so many difficult experiences that I hadn't really looked at. It's like I'd never had the time to stop and go inside and actually revisit those experiences, and then to forensically, write about those experiences and the most important, aha moments, that to pare it down. So to start with, it was just mountains of writing, like overwriting. And then my mind would get blown. Okay. And I'd be overwhelmed. And my head would just spin because of, the emotional nature of the topics, tough experiences. And so that was a key part, is really overwriting, as one of my writing coaches told me. Just overwrite, get it all out, and then you can pare it back.
Sure.
And zoom in like we're doing right now.
Well, which kind of leads into the conversation of, let's talk about the journey that led you to write this book. And the book title is going to be The Truth Becomes Me. As of right now, that can always change or whatever, but right now it's The Truth Becomes Me. Let's talk about that journey that actually created the content for the book.
Okay. So, oh my goodness. Well, I'm so glad I've done the work, like that I've went through this stuff and basically taken the, in the grenade, you take that live piece out so it doesn't explode. Like, I'm glad that's happened for me so I can answer your question. Okay. So, for a long time, let's see. Okay, the journey of writing my book. This is what you're saying, and when I realized, basically, I'm just finding the point. And the point was, I realized that I needed to write about my journey after I'd had about 2 years of sobriety.
Okay.
So I finally got sober 10 years ago, like 9.5 years ago.
Okay.
And, you know, when you're in addiction, and for me, it was many addictions. So one of them was human beings. Being addicted to men was a long time problem,
Mm-hmm.
looking for love, because my dad was very hands off, and my mom, it wasn't a loving environment at all. So it's like coming from this place of feeling worthless and searching to stop the pain.
Sure.
So I was always looking, how can I stop the pain? And so I used alcohol, I used men, I used pot, I used exercise, I used money,
Mm-hmm.
any just compulsive distraction.
Sure.
So, and it couldn't stop. Like I knew something was very wrong that I was running from. And I was an actual runner too, and a cyclist.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, I was always just trying to distance myself from those feelings. Finally, I got into some really devastating things happened around the age of 27.
Okay.
And where I lost everything and I ended up homeless.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, didn't expect it. In the middle of the night, I became homeless. And then, things kind of fell into place. I actually connected with Tony Robbins training.
Cool. Yeah.
Meeting Tony Robbins through a cassette, he breathed some life in me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I want to learn this neuro-linguistic programming.
Sure.
So within about 6 months, after all kinds of other crazy things that will be in the book, like trips across Canada to the US and
Mm-hmm.
just sleeping in truck stops under the stars and crazy dangerous things, I end up in front of a professor in a neuro-linguistic institute in Vancouver.
Oh, cool.
And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I need help. I need to learn this stuff. And I just said, if I never use this for anybody else, it's going to be worth it. And she said, well, when you're smoking pot, you're not going to absorb, you're not going to get the full teaching integrated because it gets in the way. And I said, I don't care. I want to come. And so she let me come. I signed up and invested $40,000
Mm-hmm.
student loans
Sure.
in myself. And
So
and that was life-changing.
How do you use NLP to heal yourself on a daily basis?
Well, for me, NLP, the hypnosis aspect,
Mm-hmm.
is, either doing self-hypnosis or being, it reflects back to writing and being careful with our words.
Sure.
Because you're taking somebody on an emotional experience with those words, whether we're speaking or whether we're writing.
Yeah.
And so, and how I'm affecting myself with my thoughts. So it's using learning how. I think one of the really important things is learning how to de-escalate emotion.
Okay.
So for me, I had panic attacks and chronic anxiety since childhood. And just that, it's like a wind-up doll, super tight. And like a cat, and learning how to like dial that down, and like using positive self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can do this, Natalie, whether I'm saying it in my head, it's like calm down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's learning to use our tone, learning to use our pace of our words, of my words with myself, and becoming aware. So sometimes we're saying things to ourselves that isn't even conscious.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And you're like, I'm so depressed, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm so depressed. And like, that was another thing. I had that for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So NLP, it wasn't really until I got sober, because the aspect of like emotional development, our emotions actually get like arrested. They get frozen when we're like from the time we're addicted. So if we never get sober, we have emotions that can be 12 years old.
Sure.
Have emotions, where we're like 4 years old when that happened. And you're like looking at your partner, like you're acting like a 2-year-old. Like they actually are, or I am, it's like, I'm acting like a teenager. And yeah, I haven't felt that.
I think psychologically,
Since that time.
it's really interesting how many either perceived traumas or actual childhood traumas, and things can be very traumatic when you're a child. And if the same thing happened to you as an adult, to be like, it's no big deal, screw them or whatever. But as a child, that gets rooted deep inside of you. And if you don't deal with it in a certain way, it can really affect the way that you live your life as an adult. That inner child thing that psychologists and therapists talk about is real. Unresolved feelings and unresolved pains can drive your personality as an adult.
Oh my gosh. You totally nailed it. Yeah. Like that's basically
right before. No, I'm just kidding.
that's my life story. You just said it. Yeah. So it's, when we're kids, we form these beliefs about who we are. Mm-hmm. And for me, like I formed the belief that I'm worthless. And I fully believed that I was worth nothing. And so out of that, I chose to behave as though I was worthless and to let others treat me that way.
Sure.
And so as the story like unwound, my life unwound, and it's like, oh, okay, stop that. So stopping things, a decade ago. And having a look and saying, oh my gosh, like realizing like the childhood tape of being told, you look like, for me, it was, you look like a streetwalker.
Oh, that's not pleasant.
Yeah. So I had somebody magnifying this bad girl, mm-hmm. magnifying glass on me. And I couldn't get it to flip. I couldn't get her to like turn it to the good girl one, no matter what I did. So I said, you know what? If that's what you say I am, that's what I'm going to be. Mm-hmm. Out of rage, I chose that, or reacted. However, it's a combination.
Right.
But when I got sober, I realized, oh my gosh, like back to the neurolinguistics, I keep returning to the scenes of these crimes. Like I keep taking myself down the path of trauma to that moment where that's like the worst moments of my life. Mm-hmm. And then I feel depressed.
Yep.
Go figure, right?
And I think there's a difference between remembering what happened versus reliving it in your mind and saying, okay, you know, and then truly believing that scene is really, you know, part of your character versus just a simple memory. That, you know, I think that's the difference between actually dealing with those feelings and living those feelings.
Yeah. Yep. You're right. You're right. And that's, but you know what? The trigger, the trigger is remembering and feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to have that trigger. And there's an amazing woman. She was through all kinds of satanic abuse. And she said, triggers are not a bad thing. They're a good thing, because without the trigger that makes you feel and remember, it can't come to consciousness to be resolved.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
So, yeah. So, but that's the hard part, is to, you know, comb through those feelings and detox them, basically. So it's a process of detoxifying those feelings.
Well, and
just saying, I'm not going there anymore. Like, there's so many strategies for dealing with those really tough life events. And for me, so I know I interrupted you, sorry, but
no, you're good.
But it is, for me, there came a point where I'd remembered it so many times. It was like, do not go down that path one more time. You know exactly what's down there. And for me, it was forgiving. It's like, oh, okay, I played a role in this, my own accountability. And I am choosing to forgive you for my own good, for my own peace. I'm not gonna like put that poison in my mouth and swish it around like for the rest of my life.
Yep.
No, thank you.
And I think in society today that feelings get a real bad rap, you know, especially anger. You know, if you're angry, then you're automatically, you know, one thing or another, or, you know, and anger is different than raging on Facebook or something like that. You know, I mean, things that make you angry. It's either a moral objection or it's a memory that pops up that you associate with whatever's happening in the current time that creates that anger. You know, I mean, and I don't think anger is a bad thing. I don't think sadness is a bad thing, you know, as long as you understand how to deal with it. And I think that's where NLP can really, NLP, self-hypnosis, meditation, you know, those types of things are real good ways of dealing with that type of stuff, as long as you're honest with yourself, is what I found.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Because something can feel as though it's true, but it's not always true. Just like if you've developed that faulty belief system, you believe something especially negative about yourself.
Right.
Like for me, because my life was so out of control, so many just like Wile E. Coyote, basically. It's like hopping off I was so impulsive. I had no self-control. Like I had no ability to foresee. It was just like, oh, that's a good idea. Whee! like no delay, no thought, no reflection, just like go. And then I'm like at the bottom of the cliff, like crunched down, like Wiley. And my point in that was that I came to such a point of like totally crushed by life. You know, by the time I got sober, that was another, like I'd had different lows, but that was when I decided, and I basically submitted my life to God. I'm like, I do not trust myself. I do not trust my ability to choose, like lead me. And that was it wasn't a church thing. It was, you know, I'd had some supernatural experiences with God. It said, he told me, like, I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had that experience back in 2007 where all my anxiety evaporated with those words. But then I forgot. I went back to sleep. And so when I finally totally surrendered my life and just
So
chose
how did you
a
get that?
path of
How did you
righteousness
get that
as much as I
message?
could. How did I get that
Yeah,
message?
was it a dream, an email, was it a phone call? Was it somebody that intercepted you on the street? I mean, I'm just kind of curious. I mean, how did that pop up? And it's like,
Oh my God.
aha, this is what it is.
Okay. So that particular experience, I was with a man that was 18 years my senior.
Mm-hmm.
We were in Sicily, and I had chronic like panic attacks and anxiety.
Okay.
I was tormented, like, to be anywhere around people. I'd just be freaking out inside.
Sure.
My heart would be racing. There's just no ability to relax for me. So I was in, we were in an all-inclusive in Sicily. I was in a lineup waiting for breakfast, and there was in this huge, beautiful place with pools and lawn chairs and
Mm-hmm.
people, nice and hot. And right there, I heard, like, across the universe, I am with you. Like, never had I was 100% sober. Never had I heard, like, any sound. Like, I knew it was God. Like, and then with that, I had 100% peace. Like, every single bit. I kept looking for the anxiety and the fear, and I was just completely at peace. And that stayed with me for like 3 full days.
Okay.
And like, never in my life had I ever, like, felt at peace.
So then you said it stayed with you for 3 days and then it kind of went away. I assume you kind of forgot, or I can't remember the exact way you phrased it, but
Kind of creep back in. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. So life and anxiety and all the stresses and everything creep back in. So were things at least a little bit better after that, or did you go back into another, deep pit?
This man that I was with, he was bad news.
Okay.
I had like almost 2 years sober before I met him. And then I met him, and then he's like, why don't you just have a glass of wine? He didn't realize.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
I didn't tell him.
Okay.
And after I had that one glass, that basically, like, I started drinking secretly.
Okay.
I started drinking openly and then secretly, like, even a few for me is too much. And then I started living a double life with him. So we got married and I lived a double life.
Okay.
And I got back into some dark avenues of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And was just not dealing with, we're fighting, like, it was just all this chaos and like layers of chaos. And it's like, he'd had 8 years, 8 years in active combat in Africa.
Okay.
So he had killed people for 8 years. He had a lot of trauma. I had a lot of trauma. And he was somebody to be afraid of.
Okay.
And he was the one who because of the intensity of his negative messaging towards me, that I'd never be worth anything. I would never be anything. He kept saying that to me near the end of our marriage. And that's when it's like the magic broke. The magic spell broke.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who are you to tell me that I will never be, like, you're not God.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, screw you. And then that marriage ended. And from there, basically, I've had an allergic reaction to abuse.
Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah.
I'm allergic.
You're allergic to it. Break out in hives, run away, get an EpiPen, all that stuff. Yep.
Yeah. Some people are vegan.
So, I mean, good for you for fighting through that. I mean, honestly. But so then after that, where'd you go? I mean, you know, your marriage had ended and you realized that, you know, God damn it, or I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah. I'm worth something.
Like, screw this. Yeah.
Yeah. Screw this. Yeah. You know, screw it. I'm worth something. Okay. So now you're telling yourself that. Now you feel that. Where do you go from there? Is this where you kind of traveled around and found the NLP? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what? The NLP was 12 years earlier.
Oh, okay. I guess I missed that on the timeline. Okay.
Yeah. But you know what? When you're addicted, like, it didn't fix that.
Yeah.
So it kind of, you know, definitely slowed me down, and just made it was just such a long journey of healing by increments. And, you know, when, like many therapists would say, you know, when there is a like super deep wounding, it can take a long time. It can take a long time to heal that. And, but I really feel like, I feel like I'm there, and I know that, you know, there's more to go. Like, I can climb that mountain, and just being here with you is amazing. Like,
it's not that
sharing.
Amazing. Well, yeah, you're doing
it's pretty amazing.
This is, I mean, you know, what you're talking about and you know, the personal nature of it is it's amazing that you're doing this. And, you know, my hope would be that somebody out there who is in, hello.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's no problem. For those who are listening in audio, we just dropped a phone. No big deal. Anybody watching on YouTube, enjoy. But anyway, you know, my hope in having conversations like this and throwing them out there is that people understand that there's never an end to the road. You know, there's always something else. You know, the sun comes back up the next day. I mean, you know, the world keeps on spinning, whatever analogy you want to use. When you're at your lowest, it doesn't mean that, you know, you surrender. That means that, you know, it's time to figure out how you get back up, you know, dust yourself off, wait for the stampede to get, you know, finish up, and then pick up all your body parts, put them back on, say, okay, let's go, you know, and that's really, yeah, it's a life lesson that I hope that, you know, like I said, my hope is somebody's listening to this go, oh yeah, I get it. Okay. You know, and, you know, I think there's a great deal of benefit for somebody to re-examine their childhood and go back and understand that, you know, those pains that, and those painful feelings that you latch onto and decide that they're going to become part of your personality and part of your makeup as a person, you really need to get rid of them. You know, those are, if they're not good for you, then you need to deal with them in one way or another and make them so they don't affect you anymore. And like I said, that'd be my hope, is that somebody listening to this gets,
Yes.
get some help, whether it's, I don't really care if it's religious help or if it's, therapy help or, going into, some sort of a rehab program or, just raising your level of self-consciousness and understanding what self-deceit is or anything like that. It doesn't matter as long as you get help,
Mhm.
being
Mhm.
addicted to something, whether it be food, whether it be sugar, whether it be drugs, whether it be alcohol, tobacco, that's my vice. It's not a good thing. And it can affect the way you are with all sorts of people. But
Yeah, definitely, Jeff. Like, well said, well said. And that's what I like. One of my top things is tell somebody, whether it's like a pastor or whether it's a coach that you pay,
mhm,
you just or call a help like a prayer line, but or a friend that you know is safe,
yep,
somebody that you get a real sense that they're safe and that they'll keep your information confidential. Yeah, so that's a huge part, is just unburdening yourself of those long held secrets that we could be holding, since we're very small. And the other thing that I would recommend people do, because it took me so long to, forgive my mother and
mm-hmm,
realize, like, really understand she was incapable at that time to be anything other than what she was.
sure,
And I'm not giving her a free pass. We're all held responsible and accountable, have consequences to our behaviors,
yep,
and myself included. But I wish that I could have, or I would have, like, forgiven her when I was 20-ish rather than basically 49 last year. I
mm-hmm,
finally, I had to, sometimes forgiveness is like, you have to do it like a dozen times because it keeps coming back and it's like, no,
agreed.
no. Yeah, sometimes it's not like one and done. And that's, for me, is like where I put it at the cross of Jesus. And it's like, you take it because I cannot deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Just please take it
I,
away.
I think one of the fallacies of that type of, when you talk about forgiveness, forgiving somebody for something, I think one of the fallacies that a lot of people, I mean, you've heard the saying, forgive and forget, because I think
Mhm.
the forget part never happens. You can forgive somebody on one level or another, but that forgetting part just never happens. I mean, you don't forget. I don't. I don't know about. I mean, but there's always that one thing. If somebody crosses you in a certain way or does something, it's like, oh, you dirty son of a, it's fine to forgive them, but I don't think you ever forget what they did. And forgiveness is when you don't have that feeling of ill will every time that you see them for what they did, but you do remember, oh yeah, I got to watch this guy because he's going to, stab me in the back one more time, or,
Mm.
whatever, you know, um, I don't know. But
Yep, yep.
I
It could,
think I think
sorry.
people I think people misrepresent what forgiveness really is. It's not, it's just not, oh, I forgive you, and then you just walk on with life. I mean, if somebody tripped you by accident, okay, that's one thing. Somebody abuses you or somebody, beats the crap out of you or whatever, you're not going to forget that ever. You have to deal with it. You can forgive them for what they did, but on the other hand, never forget. And what kind of reminds me of that is I was reading through some of the poems that you have underneath domestic violence on your website, and it's and you have biblical references in there and everything else, and that might be a place where somebody who is actually dealing with that can draw a little bit of strength from the words on that page.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. Hey, I have a little piece right here. Would you like me to read just a tiny something?
Oh yeah, go ahead, knock it out.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. This basically encapsulates most of my life. It's called Bad Ideas. And I'm so creative, but you know, when you put that to the to the dark side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, bad ideas, an obvious trap set by the enemy of my soul.
Mm-hmm.
A black-haired spokesgirl from the dark side suggested lightly, "You give it away for free. Why not get paid?" Next, reality imploded. Drunk. I destroyed his car July long. Mom and Dad moved me 10 hours away 2 days later. I jumped right in, perfect sense, to pursue what I hated. Toilet paper girl.
Mm.
Aggressive occupants, anxious and bereft, left little room for me. I carried a pain bomb.
I like that that I carried a pain bomb. That really kind of sums it up for, that's an interesting use of words. I've never thought of it as a pain bomb.
Thanks.
I
Yeah, it
love
was.
poetry, can't write it, but I do love poetry.
Aw, thank you so much.
No problem. No problem.
Thank you for our time.
Oh, I don't think we're done yet. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
Let's see.
How hard is it to actually, you walk through this and put it down into words and actually, create a novel or create a book that is a memoir, that is, kind of an instructional guide on how other people can get through some of what you've gone through, and trying to guide them. You've obviously have done a lot of internal healing, because you can talk about this very openly. And for anybody who hasn't done that and actually, put all your laundry out there and said, here it is, that's a tough thing. That's really hard, and it takes practice to be able to do it as eloquently as you have done. But how'd you overcome that struggle to keep things secret versus, throwing it out there and trying to help other people?
Well, I think that's where the truth vigilante comes in.
Okay.
So, for me, it is being like a witness for truth.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm being a witness to my own truth and sharing that, so that my experiences can benefit other people. So I'm just thinking about what you said. It's been a journey, right? It's because on a physical level, and even, isolating myself and contracting, hiding away,
Mm-hmm.
it's natural to want to protect yourself.
Yep.
When you've needed to do that for survival, when you've learned to be self-protective.
Sure.
And so now it's like, okay, well, because of my journey with God, and it's like, I want my life, I want to use my life, and like good, bad, and ugly, to help others to know that no matter how far down they go, they can carry on, and you can, like, we can feel good again. Like, I feel happiness, I feel joy. Like, there were 40 years of depression, like blackout, like probably bipolar. I was never, what's the word? I was never diagnosed,
Yeah.
given a title.
Mhm.
I just knew I was almost crazy.
Hmm.
And, and so that's what drove me existentially, right? To
Mhm.
like cling on to God. Like my parents were atheists and I'm like, help me. Like not even sure what I was, just help me
Mhm.
because I need help. And so to ask for help, and I guess writing this book has been like the epitome of that, because it's like exposure, exposing it in words.
Mhm.
And then I did a photo shoot about the pain of prostitution.
Mhm.
And then I submitted that photo shoot to, it's called Art X Freedom. It's a trafficking hub campaign to end, human trafficking, crimes against women and kids and porn.
Sure.
So anyway, my picture was chosen as one of the international entries.
Okay.
And so it's been in Hollywood, that happened in September. So even physically putting out that, just realizing the whole sexuality for sale realm,
Yeah.
how injurious that is to females and how injurious that is to the buyers. And it's just this cycle, an awful cycle of darkness. And so it's like exposure. Um, I, in the last couple of months, have felt um, it's felt like too much. Putting myself out there, it's like, a picture says 1,000 words, whatever.
Sure.
Leaving hints, leaving breadcrumbs of the, what the journey was and this, that. But I mean, as trite as it is, the truth does set us free. And, just letting people go through all kinds of things.
Yep.
And most people don't share their deepest, darkest
Agreed.
moments with the world.
No, they don't.
And there's reason for that. But for me, it's like worth it it's worth it. Well, I mean, one thing is in the last couple of years when I was writing and there was one day and it was really hard. You asked how hard it was. It's been so hard, like the hardest thing
Mhm.
besides getting sober has been to write this journey
Yeah.
in a way that's not traumatizing for my reader, in a way that's, you can feel the depth of it without like traumatizing people who read it. It's like,
Mhm.
whoa, like that's really interesting. I want that kind of, like, that's an interesting perception. But the thought that came to me when in the midst of that, like, I think it was 2017, it was like, I just started laughing and I'm like, gosh, like I sure gave myself a lot to write about. Like, wow, there's so much drama, right?
Yeah. It is it's courageous to publish a book. I think it's another level of courage to actually write a book about yourself, especially the way that you're presenting this information. I think it's very helpful to people.
Thank you.
I think it's going to help a lot of people. I really do. So,
That's my desire. It's my only reason. It's my only reason. Why else?
you know, the one thing I want to tell you is that, I really appreciate you coming on here and talking with me. And I appreciate the candid manner in which you speak of your history. I really do. And I don't see that there's any way that this book isn't going to be. It, I think if people pick it up and read it, they're going through a hard time. I think it's going to guide them to a possible solution for the dark parts in their lives. I really do. I feel that. So I just
Thank
want
you.
to congratulate you on this journey so far. I really want to get you back on this program after you publish your book. After it's been out for a little bit, we'll help promote it a little bit with this podcast, and then we'll bring you back on and we can talk about the publishing process and after it's been out for a little bit, see what the reaction is, because I think it's going to be really good. I really do.
Thank you. That encourages me.
I
And I'm going to get it done. I'm going to get it done. This is like the last mile.
mm-hmm.
Get it done. And thank you. Thank you for your encouraging words.
Not a problem. With that, I think we're going to call this program to a close for today.
Perfect.
I really do appreciate your time that you spent with me. Like I said, we'll keep in contact, and when this thing's out, then we'll jump back on and we'll talk about that. But
Sounds good.
I would like to thank everybody for listening to this. I hope that you have found some encouragement or found some sort of a solution to whatever problem may be occurring in your life. It's all very, real at this point, especially with the environment that we happen to be in 2020, going into 2021.
Yeah.
That if you are feeling, a little down or a little depressed, I'm not saying a little, and you need to do some self-evaluation, I think that, if you, there are resources out there for you to help you. But with that, thanks again for listening. This is Jeff of the DIY Writer Podcast. If you would please subscribe to my podcast and whatever app you happen to be listening to, and also my YouTube channel. Other than that, I want you all to have a great day and keep your chin up. Bye-bye.
Please hit the subscribe button. I get a bonus for every subscriber, and I only need 1,506 more to become a full-time paid employee. Help me, please.
Bye.